affected or disrupted the local economy where it took place. The fires, now you'll remember that. It was top story throughout last week and previous days preceding that. Those fires which swept across the Cape Peninsula from March the 1st until they were extinguished about 8 days later have caused serious damage to property and the environment. Well, the raging flames displaced families as more than 500 people had to be evacuated. And then finally on Sunday, before being extinguished on Monday, the flames claimed a second life, that of working on fire pilot Willem Hendrik Maree. Now to speak to us a little bit more on this issue and to give us an update, we're joined by Minister of Environmental Affairs Edna Molewa, as well as Trevor Abrahams. He's from Working on Fire. A very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a hectic couple of days. I think that's not an understatement.
Indeed, it is not an understatement, and thanks for having us. This has been one of the very difficult moments. I mean, it's really devastating fire, although relatively speaking to the fires of 2000, it's still probably a little lower. But yes, it is indeed a problem. And really, it's just good that we found being prepared. Mm-hmm. And I think that there could have been a very terrible story that we're telling now. Could it not have been due to the teams that we have? Remember, we have started setting up teams for Western Cape, Ukuvuga, back then in 2000 to ensure that the fires that are ravaging Western Cape, because that's actually a place where there's fires all the time, and those teams actually worked. And then in 5 years later, we started putting teams throughout South Africa, and now it's working on fire teams. They're very wonderful people. I think we really have to congratulate them. I have no words to honor them for what they did, including our loved one who we lost, a pilot, unfortunately, but we'll always remember him for the bravery and the hard work that he really took. I'm saying once again, could it not have been due to this teams, I think Western Cape would have been devastated completely, because indeed we led the missions, we supported the teams through Working on Fire teams, and indeed ensured that the fires were put down. It's also just a pity that at times, when you are in a situation like this, you try and be as calm as possible, also try and marshal your teams, because nationally, we have a responsibility to take care of people in Western Cape. We have a responsibility not to even claim this credit as a political matter, but work and support people in Western Cape as we did. Really, we're very happy with the work that's done, and I think we'll continue to do that. We know that in winter, the fires are coming to the inland, and that again we'll be ready for. As we had already taken part of our, over 400 people working there, and we brought 250 additional. But I think Trevor will talk about the state of affairs right now, how the fire has been extinguished, and it's good that yes, has been. Amongst these teams, by the way, what we're celebrating, especially on International Women's Day, is the fact that we have 31% of those firefighters being women. Very powerful women, very determined to do anything. And that's the largest team worldwide.
There was a beautiful spread. I'm not sure if you saw it over the weekend in one of the weekend newspapers that profiled a number of the firefighters and how you see that they're ordinary people just like you and me doing an extraordinary job, an extremely tough call and a grueling task as well. Just speak to us about the preparations going into such a situation. The minister speaking about how you have to be calm under pressure. You have to speak to often panicking residents there, telling them what to do, what not to do, on the chopper, in the air. There's just so much coordination that's involved in this. Speak to us a little bit about the work that goes into such a procedure.
Yeah, thanks.
As AB mentioned,
what we see now,
a bit of fight.
The effort that we saw at this firefight is a product of intense training. The firefighters the minister is referring to actually are recruited from our youth, mostly unemployed, sometimes unemployable, that we've actually been able to weld into a fighting force, skilled, disciplined, very fit. And, those are the elements that bring the success. Touch wood, we've not lost a single firefighter on the fire line. And that's got to do with the training they have, the fitness they have, and the dedication they have. So it's a lot of training that goes into it. We also have the incident command system. And the spotter plane, which actually flies over our fires, looks after not only directing the aircraft that bomb the fires, but also protecting our crew on the ground. So that's how we work as an integrated force on the fire line, in the air, and produce the kind of results that the Minister's referring to.
Minister, what do we know about the cause of the blaze at the moment?
Well, I think there again, that being a very hot place, I mean, Western Cape in particular, this last Tuesday was the hottest city or area throughout the world, 43 degrees Celsius, quite hot indeed. And with that kind of heat, I mean, anything sparks fire. We have methane gas in all the places. There are various causes of this. But I think the teams have actually indicated that they've been able to put out 10 fires quietly. We see this bigger one, but there are from time to time, fires emerging from, very different corners of Western Cape. Some, by the way, in communities. We have recently, just last week, 2 weeks ago, tested the fires checks against heat and against fire. We had 3 samples that we were doing demonstrations to see if a shack, a new one that we have erected with new technology, actually 2 with new technologies, our own technology and the external technology, would actually be able to withstand fire. We are planning to replace these fires in informal settlements where people's houses are being burnt, sometimes with them being at work or so, with these particular shacks. We do that work even in informal settlements in Western Cape and throughout the country.
We'll have to leave it there. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. Thank you so much for joining us. Just bringing you in on 1 or 2 things that the Minister had to say off air, saying this is good evidence that global warming indeed does exist and that this is an extent of global warming. We'll perhaps pick up on that topic at a later stage, but also adding that there's been extensive damage to the fauna and flora in the area there, saying some of the insect life has also, as you can imagine, been affected. So that's another one that we'll have to look at. How do we repair that, and going forward, what steps needs to be taken to rehabilitate that affected area where the fires raged in that part of the Western Cape. All right, we'll have to leave that conversation there.